Everyone knows who Chris Chan is. He's often been called the most documented person online, a sentiment which many would struggle to argue with. From an entire Wikipedia dedicated to his existence, hundreds of thousands of forum posts, and multiple feature-length documentaries, it's honestly surprising that his tale has only recently attracted mainstream attention. Although, considering the disturbing nature of the latest development, the infamy is deserved.
Chris Chan, incest, mother.
The revelation that Chris had an incestuous relationship with his mother was a new low, many thought impossible, even for him. While on its own, it's extremely revolting, it somehow gets even darker. In the days following the initial leak, forum users have dug through logs and evidence to discover the origin of Chris admitting to his crime, and more importantly, the person he confessed to, someone much more vile than Chris himself. On July 29th, 2021, a YouTube video containing audio from a conversation with Chris was posted to the Chris Chan subreddit, in which he admitted to having incestuous sex on multiple occasions with his 79-year-old mother. Apart from the obvious disgust at such an act, incest between a mother and child in Chris's home state of Virginia is a Class 5 felony and punishable by up to a maximum of 10 years in prison. This is made worse by the fact that Barbara Chandler suffers from dementia. This is something that Chris openly acknowledges in several instances, detailing that his mother resisted his advances. According to Chris, the two engaged in sexual activities every third night, starting from the 27th of June, implying this had occurred over 10 times prior to the leak. This audio and accompanying screenshots were then posted to Kiwi Farms the following day, and reposted by the site's owner, Null, who stated, "They are considered genuine. Nobody knew of this except one person named Bella, a troll Sona of someone named 10th Anonymous, who Chris confided this information in." Following the spread of the leak, local authorities were bombarded with tips regarding Chris, causing him to be served an emergency protective order, and eventually be arrested on August 1st, 2021, an event that was live-streamed by Killstream host Ethan Ralph for the entire internet to see.
Yeah, you're lying to about 3,000 people right now, Chris Chan.
But in the wake of the news, many were still left looking for answers. The latest developments prior to this were simply about Chris attending a Brony convention in Washington and doing art commissions to afford the trip. Naturally, the question on everyone's mind was, where was the audio recording from? And more broadly, did Chris act alone? The obvious first lead was the other voice on the recording, and from the moment following Null's post containing the information, efforts were made to discover the person behind the other voice. A few basic observations were made. Firstly, the person in the conversation spoke very nonchalantly about what Chris had done, as if they were not surprised or put off in any way. Secondly, the recording appeared to take place days before. This would lead to the conclusion that whoever leaked it had been sitting on the confession for some time. As far as identifying who the person on the line actually was, the voice appeared to be female, but that was all they had to start out with. Kiwi users quickly discovered the name Kelly Osbourne through accounts on Reddit, Twitter, and YouTube that were linked with the content leaks, and assumed the name Bella. The original name that Null had attached to the 10th Anon name was simply an alias. Meanwhile, Kelly Osbourne would be the real name. Contained within these accounts was a video of her rescuing her dog Max, as well as a tweet where Kelly Osbourne claimed to have met Chris in 2019. Following Chris's arrest, Kiwi started a dedicated thread to the other voice in that fateful call. They speculated on the circumstance surrounding the event, including the possibility that this figure could have influenced Chris. At the very least, they were sure she was complicit, and that was enough to mobilize them. Afraid of being exposed, Bella began frantically making efforts to distance herself, creating several different alt accounts on the site in an attempt to divert their attention and mislead the investigation. At one point, she claimed the voice on the recording was a pitch-shifted male, revealing in the process that the clip was only a snippet of a, to this day, never resurfaced 4-hour-long call. But once Bella realized these red herrings weren't buying her time, she began attempting to frame several others as being the true culprit. While claiming to be a friend of the supposed pitch-shifted caller, she revealed that the recording had been leaked onto Reddit by a woman named Fiona. Fiona, a former moderator of that same community, would turn out to be the genuine leaker, but was arguably the least malicious of the entire group. In fact, she'd only gotten involved because she developed a genuine romantic interest in Chris, and wanted to have sex with him at the aforementioned Brony convention. Yeah, it's it's one of those stories. Upon hearing the recording, Fiona decided to release it without permission, out of disgust, not truly comprehending what was occurring until listening to Chris recount the events fondly. By all accounts, Fiona gives the impression of someone in over their head, with a naive attraction to the internet star. This also made her the most optimal person to throw under the bus. And so Bella, with the aid of other trolls, subsequently attempted to frame her as the operation's mastermind. Of most significance was an orbiter named Sean Walker, who had been attempting to incorporate the characters of infamous spree killer Randy Stair into Chris's pre-existing delusions. This collaborative effort entailed selectively leaking and even faking entire conversations in order to deflect blame from themselves. As you can guess by the existence of this video, it didn't work. In an effort to discover the truth, the Kelly Osbourne persona was thoroughly dissected in hopes of leads to zero in on discovering who she really was. Bella, being the absolute genius, began to involve multiple real-life associates in her cover-up, first attempting to frame an ex-roommate as being the caller. She then encouraged a real-life friend to try and participate on the forum as damage control. He did so under the username Ternary Mercury, which wound up being the same alias he'd used on other sites. This eventually led to both him and Bella being conclusively identified. They were now certain that Bella hadn't been an alias at all, and Kelly Osbourne was none other than Isabella Loretta Janke, a 20-year-old college student attending Texas Tech University. Even just a cursory investigation to her previous online presence showed that Bella was an internet pick-me girl, having made posts on Reddit calling herself a lonely 4chan dweller who didn't get along with all the bitchy girls at college. So yeah, needless to say, she fit the profile. But somehow, her real-life background was stranger. Her mother was a Harvard graduate and Air Force pilot, while her father was an ex-Navy SEAL who owned a cybersecurity company. They divorced when she was just 9 years old, and her father remarried to a former Secret Service member. Needless to say, her family is wealthy and connected, providing context for later assertions that she never had to work a day in her life. At this point, all the evidence pretty definitively pointed to her as the woman in the call. Despite this, Bella continued to deny the truth. She made one final attempt to sway public opinion against Fiona by reaching out to a YouTuber known as Jibby, who specializes in producing Chris Chan content. Isabella, or at least someone claiming to be a friend of hers, began emailing Jibby, and using someone else's driver's license, as well as selectively cut screenshots and recording, managed to convince him to make a video proclaiming her innocence. Bear in mind, this was not met without opposition. Jibby was actively warned and chose to follow through regardless. In doing so, he failed to properly redact all of the evidence he was provided, inadvertently revealing Fiona's phone number. For the sake of brevity, I won't go through the rest of her attempts at damage control in depth, but to emphasize how desperate she was to escape consequence, Isabella released an entire 8-page document continuing to repeat the lie that Bella wasn't her real name. She said that she was never a troll, and once again, attempted to reframe Fiona as the center of attention. None of this would be effective, given that Null himself eventually stepped in and cleared any remaining doubt by posting a picture of Bella that had come from Chris himself. As forum users continued to mine those involved for information, the picture of what actually went on behind the scenes became much clearer. Isabella first got into contact with Chris by doing animations for him. She was able to turn this business relationship into a personal one, with Chris eventually having wet dreams about her. Like previous trolls, such as the Idea guys, Isabella admitted to stealing money from Chris, writing, "I'm extremely nice to him. That's how I hacked his bank account and stole his money, got free trips, and got him to join a cult." While under the presumption she'd never be identified, Isabella had admitted that she manipulated Chris with the intent of becoming the final, greatest troll of his life story by convincing him to commit suicide. An interesting footnote is that Chris's announcement he was attending the Brony convention in Washington came out of nowhere. He initially planned to drive all the way there by himself, embarking on a nearly 3,000-mile trip. This not only seemed infeasible with Chris's old minivan, but he also planned to simply sleep in parking lots along the way. This led Null to step in, offering to crowdfund plane tickets instead, as he believed Chris's original plan would have led to his death. It was later discovered that the idea to attend the event was partially Isabella's idea, hinting at potentially darker, underlying motivations. By all accounts, Isabella appears to have been the first person aware of Chris's incestual activities. She was made aware weeks before the audio released, and even in the recording can be heard rewarding with positive reinforcement.
And I encouraged her positively, let her make the first move. And she wanted to do it. And
Oh, she did? Really? She made the first move?
Yeah.
Oh, really? Wow, Barbara.
Isabella not only had no part in the information being made public, but was actually upset when Fiona leaked it to Reddit, only changing her mind after it led to Chris Chan trending on Twitter. Once the hashtag #ChrisChanDidWhat erupted the next day, Isabella began gloating that they'd broken the internet, proclaiming her group as the best trolls in history. In her mind, the audio was likely meant to be held as blackmail against Chris, in order to push him to offing himself. I'd like to say that luckily she didn't succeed, but the current outcome is still so horrible that it really doesn't feel appropriate. To this day, it's unclear if she was responsible for encouraging him to initially have sex with Barbara. Interestingly, her contact with Chris lasted up until the very day he was arrested, with her somehow convincing him, even after the leaks, that she was a friend. It just goes to show how much influence she had over him. As all of this information came to light, news of her involvement began to spread on social media. Isabella earned the title she long sought for, becoming the final, greatest troll in Chris Chan's story. Unfortunately for her, that honor is now bestowed upon her real identity. And as it turns out, that association would lead to even further revelations that exposed her to be somehow even more reprehensible than originally thought. With Isabella finally conclusively identified, word began to reach back to the student body of Texas Tech. As it turns out, her sordid past wasn't limited to just pick-meing on 4chan, or trolling Chris Chan. She'd actually become infamous among her real-life peers for the extreme lengths she went to display her degeneracy on campus. On August 7th, a student named Roman posted a thread on Twitter, revealing that Isabella had been the subject of a Title IX investigation. A Title IX refers to the process used to examine allegations of gender-based discrimination and sexual harassment. Isabella is a danger to Texas Tech. They did not do anything when I told them she threatened to rape and murder other students. It turns out that months prior, Roman had filed a complaint against Bella and her former roommate Lewis. Isabella ran a Discord server called Chess Club, which she promoted to other students as the university's actual chess team. In actuality, however, it was a place for her and her friends to harass, stalk, and ridicule anyone who joined. This would be when the first chat logs from the group began to leak, as Roman had collected an assortment in order to build his case. While most of the conversations are about what you would expect from self-labeled trolls, the most disturbing ones are far beyond what anyone could have previously suspected. Page 11 of Roman's presentation is titled Animal Abuse, Animal Murder, and Animal Molestation, and prefaces by noting that Bella and Lewis had forced a cat they adopted, named Goober, to participate in fetish play by purposely overfeeding it and sniffing its gas. I'm warning you guys now, this is the tamest of the allegations. It's only getting worse. The next slide shows chat logs of Bella admitting to having murdered 8 different hamsters, fondly recalling blowing one up, as well as boiling another. Attached was an alleged photo of the latter act, with the caption, "Swim, fucker, swim." The third screenshot captures the following conversation. Isabella: when Lewis let me murder a hamster in his kitchen and eat it, and when he took a bite of it. Lewis: I hated that day. Isabella: I loved that day. These are extremely heavy allegations, one that, upon hearing, you may expect have led to her and Lewis being immediately expelled. Surprisingly, however, they weren't, with Roman's Title IX investigation being dismissed due to lack of evidence. This means that the information isn't entirely true, right? Well, not exactly. The formal complaint was filed in March of 2021, and by the end of that month, they'd been served no contact orders by the school's administration. However, the two were able to use the university unfamiliarity with Discord to create ambiguity as to if they were actually behind the accounts. They achieved this by spamming their chess club server with gore, and then reporting themselves from new accounts to take credit for stopping whoever was actually behind the harassment. The plan was successful, and as a result, the entire investigation was dismissed, with the university concluding that there was no way to prove the accounts belonged to them. Prior to this, Roman was reluctant to speak out publicly, as the server was filled with them stalking the profiles of students on campus. Bella's group specifically targeted members of the LGBT community, allegedly making a list of self-identifying students at the school. Trans people in particular seemed to be the focus, with the group harassing them in a variety of ways, including outing them publicly. However, due to the investigation, Roman's identity was outed to Bella, who then attempted to get revenge by doxing him on 4chan and 8chan. Bella. Nobody will respond on 8kun, but it will always be there for years. That's what's important. After writing the Twitter thread, Roman later visited Kiwi Farms to divulge further information about Bella's on-campus activities, noting that every time you walked past her room, it was like a rancid piss stench. A part of that smell was undoubtedly a result of Goober, who, as mentioned before, they intentionally overfed. The exact reason for the treatment ties into another aspect of Isabella Loretta Janke, which is that she has a fetish for feces and just generally being repulsive. Evidently, she let the smell produced from her cat linger for this reason. But, by extension, Bella refuses to use cleaning products, and from the images shared, gets fungal infections on her fingers and toenails so severe that she's resorted to removing them and gluing them back on. Her stench and just being all around disgusting wasn't the only reason those around Isabella despised her. Bella frequently vandalized the dorm's restrooms, and at one point even framed another student after flooding the laundry room in order to have them charged for the damages. But as if living near her wasn't bad enough, even worse was living with her. Bella would steal her roommates' items and even secretly planted cameras to spy on them, allegedly in an attempt to collect blackmail, which included filming one of them crying. She would later develop a vendetta against that same individual, later photoshopping text messages to frame them as an animal abuser. She even attempted to pin him as the mastermind amidst the post-incest fallout. Really unfortunate that's a real thing. Bella also developed a crush on another one of her female roommates. She began licking their razor blades in order to taste her pubic hair. And after that individual used the restroom, Bella wrote in her server that she saw the yummy streaks in the toilet and thought it was hot. She later admitted to rolling around in urine that they left in the shower. Bella, redacted, peed in the shower. Not like while she was showering, there was just a puddle of pee in the shower, and she never turned the shower on. It's right next to the toilet. I'm gonna lay down in the shower and see if I can get some on my body before it washes off. Bella has since, on occasion, bragged about eventually molesting them after a physical altercation. Referring to being kicked in the clit, she stated, "Bella, it's like your balls getting stepped on. Redacted used to do it to me all the time. She kneed me when I tried to rape her, and I was on the floor about to puke." Lewis, did it stop you? Bella, no, I raped her in the end. She is also said to have, on multiple occasions, talked about helping her female friends with foot massages or their bra and using it as a chance to feel them up. All of these issues would culminate in Bella being served an eviction notice, with other students speculating that it may be due to the spy cameras. Isabella later claimed that receiving the notice was a mistake, and she was just being transferred. Keep in mind, this is the word of a pathological liar. At this point, you're probably wondering how we can be sure that these chat logs are real. While much of the initial information was sourced from Roman, who had an insider screenshotting evidence, most of this originates from multiple full-server archives that were leaked online. As members of the chess club were outed and identified, each attempted to throw the other under the bus, and used their inside knowledge as leverage to bargain for a better portrayal. Aside from Bella, the other two main members of the Discord were the aforementioned Lewis and another Texas Tech student named Alan. Lewis can be characterized as a pushover, Isabella's designated fall guy, who she also tried to throw under the bus during the incest leaks. Despite this, he refused to completely turn on her, though was the first to leak the server logs. An ex-associate of Bella described the two's dynamic by stating that if Bella aimed a firecracker at a person, Lewis would supply the lighter. Bella is a computer science major and claims to have hacked other students in the past. She also claims to have scripted viruses and spread them to others, one of these victims being Alan. Meanwhile, Alan and Bella made attempts to force feminize Lewis, at one point even plotting to spike his drinks with estrogen, joking about permanently destroying his brain chemistry. Bella once flat out stated that, "I cheer up everyone but him. He's the only friend I have where his downfall and suffering is genuinely hilarious." Alan replied, "Personally, I would never hang out with him on my own accord alone. I can do that with anyone else I know but him." Alan would be responsible for the later chess club leaks, portraying himself as a naive bystander. However, upon being pressed, he later admitted to have personally witnessed Bella kill a hamster in Lewis's kitchen, though defended himself by stating that, unlike them, he didn't eat it. Interviewer, "I'm not sure I believe you weren't present, Alan, because otherwise, you wouldn't have any reason to believe she wasn't just being edgy again. I'll ask again. Were you there? Alan, yes, I was, but I didn't do anything to the hamster or eat it. I'm sorry for lying. I know I should have done something, but I didn't. I feel horrible." Interviewer: why did you just lie to me? Alan: I'm sorry, I don't know. Please forgive me. If Alan is to be believed, this seems to answer the question of if a lot of things Isabella claimed to have done were fabrications, and that leads into the most questionable of allegations against her. Several of those close to her have claimed that Bella is a pedophile, as well as possessing several other illegal sexual interests. This includes an interview with an ex-member of the chess club who alleged Bella to have collected child pornography, Zorgoth TDK. Bella was an admin for a few 4chan threads and used them to collect CP for her own use, and may have resold it to others. I don't know much about it, but I think she talked about having a doc or note with links of the stuff in there. She said she'd somehow managed to convince everyone she was a middle-aged man. Interviewer: so, when you say for her own use, you mean she's a pedo? Zorgoth TDK: yeah, I thought that was common knowledge. She talked about wanting to touch little girls constantly. Now, the likelihood of Bella actually being an admin for 4chan is doubtful, but this could be attributed to his misunderstandings of how the site works, or Bella misdirecting her source. Recently, evidence has surfaced to corroborate the allegation of collecting links, with a leaked screenshot surfacing from a compromised Imager account she owned, of what is speculated to be links to child exploitation materials on the deep web. Of course, it's worth reiterating that these are presently allegations, and as of the time of recording, they've been yet to be substantiated. It's currently not known what the fate of Isabella Loretta Janke is. Texas Tech University was bombarded with so many inquiries concerning her behavior that they were forced to confirm that a new investigation was pending, and begged the public to stop emailing them. It's been said by those close that a committee has been formed by the administration to determine what action will be taken, but due to the bureaucratic process, an end date is uncertain. Regardless, it seems unlikely for her to avoid repercussions again, with Isabella's actions being tied to her name and face forever. The events leading to Chris Chan's incarceration are poetic in a way that seem almost like supernatural force was involved. The identity of Bella was discovered by users of Kiwi Farms, a forum initially created with the explicit purpose of documenting Chris. Chris's mother, whose negligence is apparent was often pointed to as the reason for his behavior a decade ago, ultimately became the greatest victim of the scenario. Greatest of all is Isabella, someone who is the antithesis to the phenomenon that is Chris Chan. Isabella is someone who takes great pleasure in mocking and torturing others, far beyond what anyone else would be willing to do. Above all, she's actually a lesbian, a boyfriend-free girl. It's only fitting that someone hell-bent on trolling Chris, ultimately leading to his arrest, would actually turn out to be far worse than him. On the 31st of August, someone claiming to be Isabella's legal representation sent a message to Null requesting that the threads about her on Kiwi Farms be removed. As of yet, no such action has been taken. I've been Turkey Tom, thanks for watching, and until next time, leave me alone.